Excellent. All right, let's drag that in there. All right, so we were enjoying our break, and today our wonderful Pythonistic quote of the Zen of Python. We have 3 lines to accommodate with today. Readability counts, right? I mean, we've just looked at the different ways that you can use the format a string. That definitely helps with readability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could use concatenation, adding that plus sign in there. You could use interpolation, or you could use the format method. So those are the 3 ways. But again, understand that special cases are not special enough to break the rules. So
Mm-hmm.
to keep that in mind, but make sure you understand also that practicality beats purity. All right, that's it. Let's carry on. The next thing we have to talk about is file basics. So back when we started, we talked about a little bit about hardware architecture, how the computer is broken up. We have inputs and outputs. And we also have hardware and software. Everything we're doing, we're building it on the hardware. We have external hardware and we have internal hardware. So the internal hardware is where our program resides, specifically in the memory. So we went ahead and talked about conditionals, loops, and functions. All that computation takes place in the CPU, right? So all the computation that we talked about when we talked about conditional loops and functions takes place right here in the CPU. And everything that we've been saving has been saved in our main memory. So the variables, the data structures, those lists and dictionaries all reside here in the main memory. So we are not able to keep track of it because this main memory is volatile. Once you turn off the power, it goes off, right? The CPU is just there sitting and waiting for instructions. What next do I need to do? So now we're introducing a method of making our code, instead of being transient, it's now being persistent by using the secondary memory. It's also useful because when the power goes off, it's still available. If you need to run your code on another device, you can take it out. If you're using a flash drive or external drive, you can remove that and run it on another device, and so on and so forth. So it's also useful for both input and output. You can use your file as an input, save it in a list, save it in a variable, save it in a dictionary. You can also use it as an output. So once you output it to that file and save it in your secondary memory, you can come back tomorrow and you can still see the output from your last file. So think about video games. If you're having video games or just a guessing game, you can save it and then okay, this user has this highest points, or that user has this highest points, or these are some of the cities that you have guessed. We probably want to remove them from the dictionary the next time you're using, and so on. So all of those, keeping track of your records, high scores, and so on and so forth. All right. But again, different file types we talk about. They're text files, which we've been using all along. Everything we can see, most of it is text. Even though it's text, it also gets converted to ones and zeros before it gets saved in our secondary or main memory. Binary files would be things like audio files, text, pictures, videos. Those you cannot open them in a text editor. If you open them in a text editor, you're going to see gibberish, right? Because the text editor cannot encode that. So, or decode that, I should say. So those are the 2 main things. We'll be working mostly with the text editors, the text files. So the text files, as you can see here, there are a bunch of text files. A file normally, again, I know it defeats the purpose to mention it, but file usually has a file name and an extension. Okay. So we also have the file path, where the file is coming from, where it's located. But then the file path, in addition to the file's unique name and its actual extension, it combines to give you what is known as the file path or the file name. Okay, so that has to be unique each time. So you can have the same name but in a different folder. That's totally fine because it has a different path. So Naming conventions, again, in the past when we had issues with space, the naming convention was limited to just three um, characters for the decimal. So those three characters plus the period makes it four characters that we're able to save for just the file extensions. But now, space is not an issue. So you see things like YAML. Before, HTML was always saved as HTM because, again, it had to be limited to that. So that's why if you see those separate differences, that's explanation for that. So text files, again, everybody's familiar with those. It's simple. We can read them in whatever text editor. CSV style file stands for comma separated values. You also have tabs. It's not necessarily commas. It could be commas. It could be tabs. It could be semicolons. It could have any delimiter that you need. XML is mostly used for the web, transfer information from, say, HTTP protocol. And it also goes hand in hand with hypertext markup language. So HTML just has a hierarchical structure. So you can say, okay, these are the universities. Each university has its departments. The departments have their courses. The courses have their teachers, and so on and so forth. So that is what the structure of XML is. JSON is more modern compared to XML. XML is old school, even though some people still use it. I think it's really mostly used in the IRS, in the Internal Revenue Department, IRS department. I'm not sure if they still use it, but I know a few years ago they were still using it. But JSON is more modern. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Remember, we keep saying Python, everything about Python is objects. Tomorrow, definitely, we'll talk about object-oriented programming. So in this case, we are just going to annotate everything in an object manner. So for instance, a student or a person will have different attributes, and then you have your attributes. Say, for instance, if you're a person, you should have a name, and then the name gets inputted in there. But the JSON is pretty much just a dictionary. So the name would be your key, and your actual name will be the value. Your date of birth will be a key. Your date of birth will be the value. Your nationality will be a key, and the nationality you have is a value. So that's why it's a dictionary format. And a dictionary can hold many data types, even the data structures. So you can have a nested dictionary. And there are ways that you can actually make it look pretty. We'll look at that shortly. YAML is also very similar. It stands for YAML, another markup language, just like XML, but it's more representative like JSON. It's more verbose. Okay, JSON is more abbreviated. YAML is the same thing with JSON. So if you know JSON, you're typically easy to read YAML, which is why it's more verbose, but it's easy to read. Well, that said, at the end of the day, when we said earlier that a line or a string is a sequence of characters, it's in the same light that I will say a file is a sequence of lines. So we can always save each line to be in a particular item and also have an index for it, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look at how we can make that happen. Okay, so what questions do you have for this part so far? Everything clear? Ties in with everything we've done so far?
Yeah, just when we look at the types there,
Yeah.
we don't have Excel.
Excel.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very good question. So Excel is actually, let me break it down this way. So we have different companies, right, that are in IT. And those different companies could either be creating hardware or software. So Microsoft is one of the biggest ones. Microsoft creates Windows. So they've got into the software space. Dell is another one, but Dell does hardware stuff. So Dell is not going to be something that we'll talk about. But Microsoft creates Windows. Windows is an operating system. It's rivaled by Mac operating system, which is Mac OS, created by Apple. Apple did not create many enterprise applications, but Microsoft created enterprise applications to go with its Windows operating system. So in there you have Office. Office applications are very popular, and one of the Office applications is Excel. So Excel is used for calculations, computations, but normally the extension for Excel files is usually XLS. Okay, there can be other variations like a T at the end for a template, an M at the end for a macro-driven XML file. But when you want to get a file from Excel to be in a text format, as we've talked about here, what you need to do is convert it to CSV. Why you need to do that is because Excel has multiple sheets, multiple tabs.
Yes.
So you won't be able to get that entire workbook, as it's called. The workbook, again, is just like a textbook, a book that has multiple pages. So all you're interested in is one single page. So that one single page is what's going to be saved as a CSV file. And then you can use that to import into your Python code. Does that help?
It does. So yeah, not that I tried Excel before. I just wanted to make sure that it's not part of the type.
Yeah, you can use Excel files, definitely. And if you want to try it, all you have to do is make sure you identify the tab, the sheet that you want to get your data from.
Yeah.
You go ahead and save it. You click Save As. You specify that I want to save it as CSV file. You can also save an Excel file as a text file. You just have to specify your delimiter and so on and so forth.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very good question. Okay, so let's check out the next thing. Now, let's get into files per se. So that file in there is sitting in our secondary memory. We want to be able to pull it. What we need is a handle, right? So think about a suitcase. You know, all your documents are in a suitcase. In order for you to open the suitcase, you need to get to the handle. So that handle is what we're going to use to be able to operate with everything within our file. So everything gets pulled out from the memory location. It sits in the handle. That's what we use to interact. As we said again, a few things you can do is you can open the file. Okay. When you open the file, you definitely need to specify the mode in which you want to open the file. How do you want to access this file? Do you only want to read the information? Then that's fine. Just use R. And we'll look at an example of that. Do you want to read it and do other stuff? Maybe write it, then do R+. Do you want to just write information to the file, insert or add? Then go ahead and do write. But writing, very careful with it because it's going to overwrite your entire file. So if you have 3 lines of content in there and you decide that you're going to write 1 line, it's going to delete all 3 and write 1 on top of it. Okay, so that's why it's very careful to use. But if you want to write and do other stuff, then go ahead and use the W+. If you don't want to overwrite your file, then you need to use A because it's just going to append to the end. So you already have 10 records. You probably want to add 2 more. What you want to do is use the A access mode when you open the file, and then you can go ahead and add your 2 more at the end. Especially if you're iterating through, if you're looping through, say you have a list and you want to take that list and output it to a file. You have to iterate through that list and then append each time. So instead of overwriting, you end up with 1 item rather than having the entire list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. And appending, when you're appending, you need to have the file available. If you're writing, if the file is not in existence, it's going to create one for you. So there are also a bunch of methods that we can talk about. But in a nutshell, that's what it takes for you to open a file. It's a good idea to always close your file after you're done with it. That way you don't have memory sitting out there and taking up resources. Python is going to close it for you, but you know, it's a good idea to always be cleaning up your space after yourself, and so on and so forth. So we did talk about errors, encountering errors and handling errors gracefully a few weeks ago. It's the same thing with file operations. In some cases, you might try to open a file and the file is not there. Or you might try to open the file's name is not inputted correctly, or the path is wrong. You're going to end up with an error. So remember, we had the try except clause. We'll use those try except clauses to be able to handle our error, to tell us, sorry, this file is not there. You probably need to go check it out, and so on and so forth. In other cases, the file might be there, everything is okay, but you don't have access to it. So if you don't have access to it, it's also going to give you an error message. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there isn't much else to talk about with files. You just have to practice and practice, and know that, hey, if you want your users to be able to have fun with your application, maybe save their progress or save their high scores, or maybe export some data or import data from the internet or anywhere else, then you definitely need to look at file operations.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good?
Mm-hmm.
So again, one thing that I did not add in here, which is very important, is normally you need input and output. The input could be coming from the user manually, as we've been doing, using that input function. We could also get our input now from files, right? Another place that you can get input from is an API, okay? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So there's a bunch of data out there, whether it's from Facebook, Twitter, Google Maps, all of those applications, all of those software, all of those programs, they produce data and they set it up in a way that anyone can have access to it. So if you create your own application, which is what we've been doing all along, we can create our application to access the application programming interface. Those two applications get to talk to each other using the API. So you can access that through the API and pull the information. What usually happens is most of them set up their data to be available in JSON format. Okay. So when it's available in JSON format, that's why it's important to understand the structure of a dictionary and how nested dictionaries work. And then you can navigate through the JSON format to be able to get that information. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's jump into some practice. So a few things we have to talk about. String basics, we've already looked at that. String methods, we've looked at that as well. If we need to traverse a string, we can use a while loop or we can use a for loop. So let's see. Let me escape out of this and go into our code. Yeah. So what questions do you have before I jump into that real quick?
Is it you mentioned that companies do have information that is kind of open to the public.
Yes.
When does that become a crime for you to access a company's website and pull information?
Yeah, it is actually very available for everyone. I don't think it's a crime. Normally, the companies just make sure that there are some things that anything that's not private or that's not private information, right?
Okay.
Private or personal information is what is protected, but everything else is public information. So let me give you a quick example here. I think I had it open before. No, not this one. This one probably. Yeah. So if you open this link, it's going to give you a file which is in a JSON format, and it's an API for, let's open it up. Oh, I did not copy it. Okay, let's copy that. So yeah, it's just like visiting a web page, right? When you visit a web page, it gives you a bunch of information. So this is what the JSON information looks like. Got it? Not very intuitive for us, right?
Yes, you can use it to scare people.
So yes, it's public information. Anyone can access it. But what we might need to do here is if I select everything and copy it, right? And let's say I go into Visual Studio Code. I still have my Visual Studio Code not open. Or you can go into, there are many ways you can actually access the file. There are websites that will help you make it look pretty, but Visual Studio Code can also do that for you. Visual Studio Code also has a very useful tool that you can use. But once you get to that, you can copy that as, I think Twitter, what do you call it? Google and so on and so forth. They all have a bunch of data that they give you for free. You know, you can always use it. As you can see, this was a JSON file. Meanwhile, this is a CSV file.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's go first and check this first one out. Even though my computer is not being cooperative with me, do I have something running in the background? I should have opened that earlier. But yeah, so we'll look at that once I copy it over. But yeah, I think because that thing is also running, this one, I'm going to go ahead and kill that anyway. Close that. Okay, still not there. But yeah, it's always available for you. Let me copy the next one and also check out the CSV file. I can't remember which one. Oh, this is for unemployment data. And from there we can check and see. Okay. Where are we? Open another tab. Yeah. But while we're doing that, do I want to go in here and continue with? No, I don't want to do that yet. Let me go ahead and show you what a CSV file will look like. Hopefully it doesn't download it. Okay, so this is a CSV file, right?
Yeah.
And this doesn't have that many data points. It has just 2. You can see the first value has 5 digits and it's separated by a comma. The next value has 2. It's a decimal.
Yeah.
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 So you can see that clearly. But from there, let me actually, I want to make sure I copy this. Yes, let's save that. Right click, copy that. Once I copy this JSON, that way I can show you real quickly how you can update your JSON and look it, or rather make it look pretty in your Visual Studio Code. And no, it doesn't want to work with me. So list range, what was I doing here? Oh, that was a dice game. That was a long time ago. So my computer is being very annoyed with me today. Close this. And then come in here, close all this stuff. Oh, I didn't save it. All right, that's fine. I can still redo it. And then once this is set in, I'll go ahead and create a new folder. Cancel. I don't want to even mess with it. Yeah. So we are in day 6, day 5, day 4, day 3. Let's go out here and create a new folder for day 7. Once we got day 7 in there, within day 7 now, I'll go ahead and create a new folder, a new file. What was the name of this? Okay, JSON, GeoJSON counties, FIPS. Is that what it was? Yeah. So, oh, I see what happened there. So this CSV is actually just pulling 2 lines of code from here. But let me go ahead and copy this out again, just to make sure. Copy that, then go into Visual Studio Code. And it's quite a long file as well. So now that we've copied it, get in there. We're going to create a new file and call it fips.json. Once you do .json, you can see Visual Studio has given you that curly braces, which we use for dictionary. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and paste rather than using V, so we can all see what's going on. Oh no, paste. And it's still going to look scary, right? Just like it looked on there. Everything is on there. It's showing me just one line. It's asking me, do you want to show the rest of it? No, that's fine. All I have to do here is right click and format document.
Okay.
Right click on format document. It takes its pretty time and it's going to set it up to be readable.
Okay.
So this looks better, right?
Yeah. Is there a possibility to maybe change columns and stuff in there?
Change columns in terms of
like in this file, if I wish just to have the state and the county.
Excellent. Yes. So the one thing you want to do is when you use it, pull your mouse to the right next to the numbers, you can see how you can collapse them.
Okay.
Normally, you can tell from here, maybe collapsing the first one, that shows you the almost 460,000 lines of data in here. So let's go ahead and see if we collapse the features. So everything is within features. So this tells you that the key called type has a value of featured collection. Your next key is features. So if you check this in as a dictionary, if you save everything from this file as a variable, it's going to save it as a dictionary. And you can look for features as a keyword. The features will give you all of these in here. But now when you start collapsing them, you would notice that there is quite a good number of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because yesterday I struggled passing the JSON file.
Yeah.
Just because it's nested.
Yes.
And the reason I asked that question was, if I can just remove keep just the thing that I need here.
Yes. So for instance, in here, this would be one entry. That would be another feature. This would be another feature and another feature. And you can see that it's in curly braces, which means it's also a dictionary by itself. So I'll go ahead and select that. Right click and copy. Yep, it's a nested dictionary. Exactly correct. And then let's go ahead and create a new file again in there and just say one. What number was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the fourth. Phillips County 4. Not JSON. And then paste that in there. You can see this is, let me delete that comma. This is 87 lines. So this is more manageable. Now you can see that within each of those features, you have a type. It tells you it's a feature. You also have properties. You have geometry, and then you have ID. So each one of those has 3 keys and value pairs. Each of those features have a type, properties, geometry, and ID. But properties also has a dictionary in it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you expand that, you see that properties could be the geo ID, the state, the county, the name, the LSAD, and the census area.
Yeah.
Now you also have geometry. Geometry is more broken up. Oops. You have type and coordinates. Coordinates has square brackets. What are square brackets representing?
A list.
Exactly. So coordinates are in a list. So if you expand that, you'll see that it is also a nested list. Okay. But in this case, I don't think it's really a list. This is more or less like a tuple because you can't really change the order.
That's 2 pairs. Yeah.
Right. So the coordinates that make up this Chilton area it's a polygon type, and it's made up of, starts from this longitude latitude to this longitude latitude. It builds up a shape of that particular area. So all of this is not personal information, it's public information that you can use to generate that. So that's how you get it. Now, if I go back to my code, if I can find it, you would see that I pulled everything from, well, I had to import the library that allows me to open stuff from the internet. So I opened that URL and I saved it in the counties. So the response that I got after opening the URL, loaded it up, used JSON to save it to a county. Now my counties are listed. Let me go ahead and comment this out and maybe just uncomment this. So here I'm actually looking at the counties is the dictionary. That features that we looked at was one of those keys. So I want to see how many of those features are in there. If I execute this, it tells me there are 3,222 features. Right? So let me go back again to the code, which was this one. So if I start collapsing all of these, I'm going to have to collapse 3,000 of them. Now the features gave us this list. So it gave us a list. Within that list, we want to check out each of the items. So the first item, second item, third item, the fourth item is the one that we just opened up, right? So let's try to identify that fourth item. To do that, we have to give it a particular index, which is index 3. Right? Because it's 0 based. So let's go ahead and print that. It's telling us that has 4 items within it. We could also just go ahead and print the entire thing. It's going to show me what we just did. Oh no, undo. Copied it, I did not. Copy that and delete that. So it's going to tell us, okay, the 4, and then it will print it out. So let's run that. So this is what it looks like. Now you can tell that, okay, this is a dictionary. Within this dictionary, what am I interested in? I'm probably interested in the properties. So properties is the key. So the properties key is this one. And within that key, there's also another dictionary. Within that dictionary, I'm probably interested in the name. Right? So now let's go ahead and add again in the nested one. We need to get the name. Now if we print this out, we should have, oh, what did I miss? Keyword properties. Okay. So it's probably wrong. What did I miss? Features, blah, 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 blah. I probably spelled it wrong. But let's see. Let me double check again. Let's print what we had earlier. Make sure I printed. So 1, 2, properties is the key. So let's go ahead and check properties. Let's see, place. It gets challenging.
Properties is lowercase.
Ah, very good. That's what the issue was the whole time, and I totally did not see it. All right, and name should be all caps. Otherwise, I'm gonna have issues with it as well. Excellent. So now we can go ahead and specify. Number 4 is Chilton.
Okay. Sorry. Can you go back to that file, just to the file itself?
Oh, to the file itself.
Yeah. So I see that we got into properties, which is no, we got into futures,
Yeah.
which is number
So features, let me go back in here.
yeah.
From here, we did not care about type. We wanted features, right?
Yes.
So everything is a feature. So we looked at features, which counted 0, 1, 2, 3. We are interested in this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Now within these features, we got this dictionary, which is the third index, or the fourth index, which is 3. And within the dictionary, we want this particular key. This key gave us another dictionary. Within that dictionary, we wanted this name key.
Yeah, to get Chilton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. I would just can you share that code with me once you're done?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So
I got
again,
tormented by this stuff yesterday. So
that's totally fine. So from here, you can understand now how we got the counties was the content that we got from the file.
yeah.
We were able to dive in to the first key, and then that key gave us a list. We went into the third element or item, and then we went into the key for that list and the key for the nested list. So that's what, let me comment this out. So that's what I'm going to use here to be able to print the number of counties. And then I look through each one of them and I'm able to get what I'm looking for. So here I'm going to say number of counties is the length of the features, which I already checked there. And then it's going to check for every item within this range from 1 to the length of those features, which are 3,022, something like that. I'm going to print each of the counties, features, blah, 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 state. So instead of name, it's going to print the state. It's going to add a column, and then it's going to print the name. So it's going to print all the states and the names. I don't think there's a value for state. The value for state is 01, which corresponds to Alabama, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and execute this. And now you're able to see the number of counties in that file, 3,221. And it shows you all the different files. You can see some of the counties. There are many counties in one state and so on and so forth.
Yeah, this is cool. If I use this method to extract,
you should be able to get what you got from the internet, right?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that.
This is going to be a lot of scrolling to get to 3,000. So let me go ahead and comment that code back out. And then we can look at the next piece that I wanted us to check out real quick. So let's just leave it at where we were with our 2 lines of output. All right. So this is another example again. In this case, we are using pandas. And we're reading a CSV file. For pandas, again, somebody painfully already created that library for us. So we just go ahead, use that library, and we use the read CSV method. Put in the data, talk about the data type. This gives us just the top 5 records when you do the head. Now, if you go back to that code that we did, we can also use Plotly. Plotly is another library out there. Here I'm importing it and using an alias. I say the figure should give me that, and then I use a particular method, which is a Choropleth map box. Makes your maps look beautiful, gives you all these different arguments that we can set. You know, we decide to centralize it at this longitude and latitude. We have labels that are going to be used, set up opacity, and then go ahead, update the layout with the margins and show it. So if I go ahead and execute this, you can see CPU usage is going up, so it's going to take a while. Yeah, it's asking me for DF. Where do I have it? Okay, that's because I did not run this first. So I have to import this data and get the data frame. So let's run that again. Now it knows what DF is. DF is my data frame. If I execute that, it should be able to give me the output. So all of that, I didn't have to ask somebody to enter all that data. The data is already online somewhere.
Yeah.
I can go ahead and pull it and just grab all my information as I need it. Sounds good?
Yeah. Yeah. No, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. And you can also do that with anything else. So that's similarly what I did with what we had for what do you call the weather issue with the lights in Cameroon, to be able to pull that information. So I don't think I have that in here, but yeah, so that's an example of using inputs. And let's see, let me make sure I covered everything. Did we look at traversing a list? Not yet. I don't think it's something that's difficult to do. That's straightforward, right?
That's the okay, yeah.
Yeah, to traverse a particular string or a file. So let's see if I can go through it. And the format operator, that's also straightforward as well. You know, how you get to use an operator, whether it's a digit, or should I say digit or decimal, or if it's an int, if it's a string, and so on and so forth. All right. So is there anything in particular that you like to look at? The one thing we haven't looked at is the file inputs, file manipulation. So let me go into that. Where is it? Right there. So in here, I downloaded a text file. Let me double click on it. It's a quite long text file, just a bunch of emails in here. You scroll down again, you see how many of them are in there. We can decide to say, hey, go ahead and use a handle, right? Just like we talked about in our example, we use the handle to access the file. Use the open function to open that file without any particular value. I think the default is the read, right? If you open a file without having the access mode, it's going to default to read. So I have yes. So I have a variable which is count, just to keep track of the number of file lines. And then I can iterate through and say, okay, for each line in that handle, increment the count, and then at the end of the day, print the number of lines. So executing that again will give you something as straightforward as that. Sounds good.
Yeah, so you have 1909 lines on the file, right?
Yep. So if we go to that file and double check, maybe scroll down. Yep. That's the number of files in there. Sounds good.
Yeah.
We started from 0, so I think it's 1910. So we added one more at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Good. What question do you have? Everything good so far with the file?
Yeah. I need to practice a bit of stuff there just to make sure I can retain it.
Yeah. So let's see, we can use that then as an input. Here we just counted it. Now we can decide and say, hey, we want to use this and read it, right? So if we want to get, let's say, input file, should now be equal to that F handle. And we want to read the information. That's how you read the file. Right? So if we execute that, nothing happens because we just read the file. But if we want to find out what the length of this file is, how long is that file? we can use the length function and check how long that file is. It's not long. What happened? Did I not read it? I think it might have closed immediately after I read it. So I probably need to go ahead and do this again. Yep, and then run that and run this. There you go. So since I executed that and got out of that cell, it automatically cleans up. So Python is always going to clean up after you, especially if you don't close it. So I need to make sure that I open it and read it. And once you read it, you're going to exhaust it all. So that file has been opened. It's read all the way to the end. If I try reading it again, it's going to give me nothing. Does that make sense?
So you have to kind of refresh or something?
No, you have to open it each time you're reading it, because now that we open the file, so let's go back again to the idea. You open the file, your cursor is right here from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Let me go ahead and see if, no, I can do it side by side. The cursor is there at the beginning when you open the file. When you go ahead and say read, you're reading the file all the way to the end. Okay, so now you read the file all the way to the end. Your cursor is at the end. Now, if you ask for it to read again, you cannot read from here to anywhere else. It's going to give you a 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, if we try to read it twice, let me copy this. Input file. So and let's go ahead and find that. Let's go ahead and print it. Yeah, that should do it. Save file 1. Oh, let's see, first read. Read. What am I missing here? There you go. So first read got that. And then I use a comma. Second read. Actually, I should just give the name of the file to. Okay. So let's print that out. Once we do it again, let's open that. That's right. Open this, execute that. The first read is that, the second read is nothing, because we already read it all the way to the end. Sounds good?
Yeah.
And some of those functions that, some of those methods that we used, again, think about your line. You can go ahead and read each one of those lines, right? After we've done this, I probably shouldn't have this in there because I just demonstrated that. And that out. Now that we've read everything, this is now, what would you say the input file is? The input file is now a sequence, right? A sequence of lines. So it has this many lines in there. Now we can go ahead and say, traverse through it for line in input file. Just copy that over. Let's go ahead and check if line, I'm going to use one of those methods, starts with. say from, because I know it's a bunch of emails. We're going to see how many emails are in there. If that's the case, then go ahead and print the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So open it, we check if there are any emails printed out. What am I missing here? Let's see. No way, I'm missing it out. Okay. So I read that in the file is this. This is that. No, maybe I should look at this. Okay, so instead, this is just, let me go ahead and print this first. What's the length? Sorry, type. Delete all of those. So we need to find out what's the type of our handle and what's the type of our input file. So input file is a string. I know our handle is not a string. I forgot to print it out. Our handle is a wrapper, a text input output wrapper. So if this is a string, then we cannot iterate through it that way. If we had it inserted as a list, then we could have gone ahead and inputted it that way. So there are many ways you can read the data. You can read it and then use a delimiter and say, okay, read it and use a delimiter of \n, or if it's tab delimited, and so on and so forth. So in this case, we did not do that. So what I need to do then is use that wrapper, be able to iterate through it. So we're going to use this wrapper instead of using our file, which is a string. If we do that, it's still running. It's going to take a minute because there's that many. I shouldn't have. I should have used a short one, actually. I'm pretty sure after this, it's going to yell back at me that it's running out of resources. What am I missing there? Nope, it didn't get it. So starts with. Yeah, I'm definitely having an error in here. So let's go ahead and switch over to Visual Studio Code because I'm pretty sure it's going to give me the right error. Let me go ahead and copy this bad boy over, Control A, copy, create a new file. I think that was a text file. Put txt and paste it in there. Awesome. I can go ahead and grab my code. Since you don't want to give me my error messages to debug, I have to go in, save this one here. Is it saved? Yep, it is saved. All right, so let's create a new Python file and call this Git7. I should just say file input. All right, excellent. Let's try this one and see what error message it gives me now. So it still did not give me an error message. So what am I missing here? So it has nothing that starts with from. That's str, that's a text wrapper. I see. I wonder that's because I went ahead and read that. And I can go ahead and sort it out too. Excellent. Let's go ahead and run that out. There you go. So it's refusing that there's no such file. So those are one of the error messages that we get. Right? There's no such file because I gave it a different file name. So what I need to do then is use file input. I use file input and execute that. It still says there's no such file. Now let's go ahead and use a period. That's another challenge that I always have when I switch. So open and a file path. Inputs. Still cannot find my file. I wonder if that's because I don't have the operating system imported. No, I don't think I need to, do I? No, I don't. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty. This time, it's still gonna tell me there's no file found. Okay. Let's try using one quote. I don't think that's a problem here. Nope. Still cannot find it. So let's do one. Okay, I have to go figure out why the hell it's not doing this for me. But normally, again, if you want to be able to capture that error, you can go ahead and do that try. And there's no catch right now. There's no except. Error. So if there's an exception, let's go ahead and print that. F-hand is not defined. That's right. Because I do have it outside the scope. So I have to go ahead and copy that in there. That's good. So execute that, and it tells us there is an error. But I need to figure out why exactly it's not doing this. Let me go ahead and do import OS. And see if that fixes the issue. Still doesn't.
So yesterday when I was struggling, I had to put an R before the file name. But I was opening from my my C.
From your C drive. Yeah, it wants me to put the entire file path. I don't know if I want to do that, file descriptor or path, but that will look like the only workaround here. Let me go ahead and get the file path though. From here, you can get the copy path and put it in there. That should work now. Okay, so it did run successfully, but it still did not print what I wanted it to print. So I'm having an issue with that. Okay. Oh, let's see. Let me go ahead and I've read that. It's okay for line in blah, 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 blah. Let me go ahead and read it actually. I don't think I need to. So input file is equal to hand open, and to read everything. Once that's done, let's go ahead and forget about the loop right now. Let me go ahead and do something very simple first. Let me first print the first 10 lines of code. Print input file. Okay, so that should give me a first 10 characters in that file. There is an error. What was the error? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take off this try catch. That way I can see the exact error that I'm having. That's why. No, that's not why. I don't think that should be a problem. Let's run this now and see. Object handle has no attribute open. Ah, that's why, because I did open instead of read. So let's go back. That's why it's not good to just use an exception, because it's going to pick up everything. What I need here is a read. So read again is going to read every single record. So if I read everything, why do I have file output import OS? I'm missing something here. I don't think that's the first thing. Oh, never mind. I have the wrong file. I should have input.txt. So it's reading this actual file that I have in me right now, which is reading these first characters. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted the input. No wonder I wasn't able to. All right. So this is an error. Day 7 input.txt, not .py. All the simple errors are driving me crazy. Okay, so from Steph, that's good. So I can go ahead and say, okay, read everything. And now I can go ahead and probably split the line. So there's a way that you can actually read everything and sort it out and split it and so on and so forth. So the best way to do that is, instead of reading the whole chunk, because if I go ahead and printed everything out, it prints just the first blah 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 blah, course grade does not appear, blah 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 blah. That's all stuff that's from the file. But I have a better way of reading it if I read each line. So I can read each line into a file and then append it to a string, or sorry, append it to a list. So I can have a list of all the files in all the content in there. Let me look at the code again, or not the code, the file itself. So here is the first one that it gave me. So maybe I want to check if it starts with from, then print it out. So where is my, there it is. So we've read everything in there. That's good. If start with the loop for in file. If and that starts with, okay, let me make sure I type that from correctly, because yeah, that's what I need. If line starts with from, and print the line. Let's try that out. I can't see any output. Yep, it looks like nothing was printed. That's because I did read. So now if I do read line, it's going to read each line one by one. So the way you want to check is to make sure that if the line is still open, if the file is still available, then you can start reading each of the lines as you need it. I don't know, is that making any sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so read again is going to read all your contents, but then you might want to do reading each line by line. So when you read each line now, you're able to say, okay, do a particular thing with that line after reading it. So for let's see, input is that. You've read that. So now I actually wanted to read line. Right. So a few things here. Read lines is better to use because read lines is going to give you something different. The problem is I can't really do all, but I'll run this multiple times. Now that I do read lines, let me go ahead and print the type of input files. All right, that's good. So let's run that. Oh, I forgot to put print. Keep forgetting. If I'm using Anaconda, it's gonna do it for me automatically. So it's showing you that this is a list, right?
The list. Yeah.
But if I did read lines, or if I did just read and I execute that, it's showing you that it's a string. If I did read line singular, you see it's taking a long time because it's reading all of them one by one into a string. So what you want to use is read lines plural. It reads everything into a list. Now this becomes a list. We can easily play with it. Right. Now that we know that it's a list, we can go into that list and check
all the list methods and stuff.
Exactly. We can check the length of that file. It's going to give us 1909, which we had in the beginning, or we could simply just do delete input. All the list methods are available for us. So if you put a period, you can do whatever you need to do there that you do with list.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Sounds good?
Yeah, cool. Very good.
All right. And now the list now would look like each one of these lines is a list. Oh, sorry, each one of these is an item in the list.
Item in the list.
Yeah. Now we can go in and do our iteration. Since we've done that, we will do for line in input file. Let's go ahead and check if line that starts with from, print it out. Now we should be able to print all the lines that have from. Let me clear this out and execute. Now it's showing you all the lines that have from in there.
So from there you can count your emails and
Exactly.
things like
You
that.
can decide to even break it apart and say, okay, I want to split it by the spaces. You see, some have columns, some don't have columns. So you can also do a split. After all of that is said and done, rather than printing it, let me go ahead and split it. So let me create a new one. Fine. Paste. Should now this becomes a local variable. It's only available within. So line used to be equals to line dot split. Good. So now let's print line list. And now it has split it into a list. So each line is now a list.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go ahead and start looking for each particular item. You can also set it to be a dictionary and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of powerful things you can do manipulating your content. Again, once you get your JSON, you can go ahead and set it up. If you know how deep it is with the nesting, you can identify what you need to get and just go ahead and dig in. Sounds good?
Yeah, cool.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, we've been able to take a look at some of those manipulation with lists and then exceptions. Probably still rough on those exceptions, but I have to probably take some time and go through all the different exceptions you can have. I know we did mention that you can have exceptions like long path, file name. I think we've been able to demonstrate all of those. Unauthorized access, we don't have that yet, but say if you're in a network environment at work and you don't have access to the file, or you only have access to read and not to write, and you're not able to write to that file and so on and so forth, that's when you have your errors. So you can be more specific in how you catch your errors when you do your catch, your except. So except, and the different exceptions, the base exception and so on. Let's see if I can see file not found, file exists error, file not found error, and so on and so forth. Path error, and yeah. So in this case, it was a really bad example. I just made sure that I caught the exception and it doesn't give me a specific response. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, we'll round up there. I think we're way over time again, but we've been able to look at the string basics, string methods. We also looked at formatting the strings, and then we jumped into files. So we talked about how we can make our output and input persistent. Now you can decide on working with those examples. Maybe you already have a list somewhere that you want to pull information for the assessment or the quiz that we had. So you can pull either JSON or text or CSV, open it up, save it as a list or save it as a dictionary, and then go from there. Sounds good?
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Any other question before I let you go?
That small piece of code that you use to access the JSON file.
Yes.
I
think this one.
Yes.
Okay,
If I could.
Let me go ahead and post it in our class. So you should be able to have immediate access.
Yes.
And you should get it from there.
Because the way you went ahead with the like assessing all the various keys, values, and then keys and values again.
Yes.
I really like to master that.
Yeah, it's going to be different for every file. That's why the main thing I really wanted to show you there was, copying everything over. Once you copy it over, you get to your JSON, right click and format document. Everything is fine from there. You just need to, most of the time, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. Most of the time you would have documentation that is available for you. So as you can see, I just typed Twitter API. If I want to pull information from Twitter, it gives me information with their API. Some people really document their API very well. Others do not really do a good job of doing it. Okay. So it's telling you, okay, free access level, you can pull up to 15,000 tweets per month, blah, blah, blah. And, obviously they're making their money from you accessing it. So you need to make sure you know how many times you're hitting it, right? So from there, you can be able to get, documentation, reference guides, and so on, telling you what to use, which links to get, and how it's broken down. I think I'm actually seeing, okay, like users, if you want to pull follows, if you want to pull mutes, user group, lookups, and so on. So let's take an example of this. If you want to look at Twitter users, this is the endpoint that you're going to use. And then it tells you the limits and so on. So you can do tweet.read. You read a person's tweets. You can use user.read and so on and so forth. And I think there should be an example, yep, right there. So in here, it gives you an example using those IDs. You can look up particular people depending on how you're using it. TypeScript is a type of JavaScript. This is for Java if you want to use that, but this is for JSON default fields. As you can see, this is a dictionary. Within that dictionary, you have the data key. That data key has a list. Within this list, you have two objects. You have this first object and that second object. This first object gives you 3 different attributes or 3 keys. The ID is there, the username is there, and the name is there. The same with this other one. And then from there, you can pull, your responses. So it tells you again, breakdown, what each one of them are. But like I said, not all people have all their information really well documented like this. But for Twitter, Google, all those big companies, Facebook, if you want to pull information from there, use their API, pull it, it comes in JSON, you mess around with it as you need. Even Airbnb has free data. You just need to send your email because it's huge. They'll email you all your data and you can use it for your purposes.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's actually one app that I created. I don't know if I showed you this already, but this was with JavaScript. But in this case, I was able to actually use an API that one guy created. It was for the World Cup, but I didn't finish it because Cameroon lost and I got upset.
Oh, you were really hoping?
Yeah. When things started going bad, all my teams were losing. Well, as you see here, it has a list of the tournaments. Okay, all of this information, I did not put it in. I just pulled it from a website that had all the different groups. I did all the UI, and you're able to select, say for instance, if you select the people that are going to win a particular group, then you go to the next stage. But as you can see, all of these were already selected until I think when Portugal won. So Portugal played Brazil. So this is where I got tired. I think Netherlands lost, Brazil lost, and it was Argentina, Croatia. France apparently won this. And once I click on this, it's going to show up in this stage. So France has showed up here. And now I need to click on Morocco, and Morocco is going to show up as the winner of quarterfinal 4. And Morocco should go there. All the green ones have gone. Now Argentina won and France won, which puts France against Argentina and so on and so forth. But all of that information, just pulling it directly from the API. I can't remember the API I used. I think it should be in here in my code somewhere. But pull all the information from there that you need. You can go as detailed as you need. So that's what APIs are for you. It gives you the data in JSON format. I'm not sure if it's not on this. This is Python. I don't have the other one. Otherwise I'll be able to demonstrate it for you. But very, very good. Okay, so we went really, really ahead of our time today. So I'll give you your time back. I've stolen 30 minutes of your time. Tomorrow we're going to carry on from there.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.